The galaxy was no longer at peace. For 300 cycles, war had spread across the stars like a disease. Entire civilizations had fallen. Worlds had burned. Even the strongest fleets in the Orion Council were now nothing more than broken shields trying to stop an endless storm. No one remembered who started the war, and no one believed it would ever end. But now, everyone was afraid, because something new had entered the war. Something unknown. Something that did not follow the rules of the galaxy. Far away, in the central command station of the Orion Council, the lights were dim. The air was heavy. Every officer in the room looked tired, as if they had not slept in months. Because they had not. At the center of the room stood Admiral Kareth. He was not young anymore. His armor was scratched. His face carried the weight of thousands of lost battles. He looked at the hologram in front of him. It showed hundreds of systems. Most of them were red. Red meant lost. Red meant destroyed. Red meant dead civilizations. One officer spoke quietly. "We lost another fleet near the Varnex border." No one responded. Another officer added, "The Zytherian homeworld has fallen. No survivors." Still silence. Then the room shook slightly as another transmission arrived. A coded emergency signal. Everyone turned. The message was short. Too short. Admiral Kareth opened it, and his expression changed. It was a distress call, but not from a known species. Not from allies. Not from any recorded civilization in the Orion Council database. It was from a place called Earth, a small blue planet, barely noticed before. A primitive system on the edge of known space. One scientist in the room frowned. Earth? That sector has no advanced civilization. They're still developing basic space travel. Another officer laughed weakly. They are not even part of the council. Why are they sending distress signals? But Admiral Kareth did not laugh. He stared at the message longer, because something was strange. The signal was not weak. It was clean, controlled, and urgent. Very urgent. He pressed play. A voice filled the room. Human, but calm. Too calm. "This is Earth Command. We are receiving your distress signal." A pause. Then the voice continued. "We do not fully understand your war, but we are confirming one thing." Another pause. Longer this time. "We are under attack." The room went silent. One officer whispered, "Under attack? By who?" The message continued. "The enemy is not responding to communication. They are destroying everything in their path. We request information." Then came the final sentence. Simple, but heavy. "We are ready to defend ourselves." The transmission ended. For a moment, no one spoke. Then the room slowly filled with confusion. An officer broke the silence. They said, "Ready to defend themselves?" Another officer shook his head. "With what? Their ships are barely capable of leaving their system." A third officer added, "They do not even know what they are facing. This is not a local conflict. This is galactic war." Some laughed softly, not because it was funny, but because it was hopeless. Earth was too small, too new, too weak. In a war like this, weak species did not survive. They disappeared. That was the rule of the galaxy. But Admiral Kareth did not share their laughter. He zoomed in on Earth's sector map. Something bothered him. Earth was not empty. There were movement patterns. Small ones. Not like fleets. Not like warships. But organized. Precise. He frowned. Scanned their system again. The technician obeyed. Seconds passed. Then the results appeared. And the room grew quiet again. Because there were ships. Human ships. Not many. Not powerful. But built. And moving with coordination. One officer said, "They are trying to fight back." Another officer replied, "It is useless." But Kareth did not respond. He zoomed further, and what he saw made him pause. Human ships were not scattered. They were not panicked. They were forming structure, defensive layers, escape routes, counter positions. It was not chaos. It was discipline. Still, the council did not take it seriously, because they had seen this before. Many weak species tried to resist. Many believed they could survive, but the galaxy always proved them wrong. Always. One senior commander leaned forward. "Send them a warning message. Tell them to evacuate if possible." Another officer laughed. "Evacuate? Where? They're already surrounded." But the order was sent anyway. A standard message. Cold. Simple. Direct. Unknown species Earth. You are in a galactic war zone. Resistance is not advised. Evacuate your population if possible. They waited. Minutes passed. Then hours. No reply. Then something unexpected happened. A new transmission arrived. From Earth. The room went silent again. Admiral Kareth opened it. A human voice again. But this time, different. Stronger. Not angry. Not afraid. Just focused. This is Earth Command. We have received your message. A pause. Then the next words changed everything. We are not evacuating. Another pause. Then, we are identifying enemy positions. One officer frowned. What does that mean? But no one answered. The human voice continued. We understand now that this is not a local threat. A longer pause. Then the final sentence came. Calm. Cold. Clear. We will handle it. Transmission ended. The room exploded in discussion. What did they just say? Handle it? Handle what? They have no idea what they are facing. One officer stood up angrily. This is madness. They will be destroyed in days. But Admiral Kareth said nothing. He only stared at the screen. Because something about the message felt wrong. Not weak, not strong, but certain, too certain, like a species that had already decided the outcome. Far away, on Earth, something was happening. Something the galaxy did not yet understand. Human military command had gathered, not in panic, not in fear, but in silence. Screens showed alien fleets, destroyed worlds, burning colonies. One human general finally spoke. They think we are weak. Another officer replied, we are not. A third voice added softly, they just never looked at us properly. The general looked at the reports again, then said one sentence. Activate full defense protocol. No applause, no shouting, just action. Back in the Orion Council station, Admiral Kareth watched Earth closely. The human ships began to move again, but now differently. Not defensive anymore, not reactive, intentional, targeted. One officer whispered, what are they doing? Kareth narrowed his eyes. I don't know. And for the first time in his life, he felt something uncomfortable, uncertainty, because the humans were not behaving like a primitive species. They were behaving like something else, something that had been waiting. And deep in space, far beyond Earth's orbit, the first human fleet began to form. Not large, not loud, but ready. And in that silence, the galaxy unknowingly took its first step towards something it would never forget. Space was never truly silent, but in that moment, it felt like it was holding its breath. The Orion Council watched Earth carefully. After the strange human message, no one spoke for several minutes. The command room remained frozen, filled only with the soft sound of systems and distant alarms from other sectors of the war. Admiral Kareth stood still in front of the holographic map. Earth was now highlighted, not because it was important, but because it was unknown. And unknown things in war were dangerous. One officer finally broke the silence. They are still active. Another replied, quickly, they should be evacuating, not organizing fleets. A third officer leaned forward. Maybe they are trying to escape. But Kareth did not agree. He narrowed his eyes. No, they are not escaping. That sentence made the room quiet again, because something in his voice felt serious. Globe showing Europe, Africa on Earth. The hidden preparation. Far away, on the blue planet, humanity was not panicking. There were no riots in military centers. No confusion in command stations. No chaos in space agencies. Instead, there was silence. Controlled silence. Inside a massive underground command facility, deep below a mountain range, human leaders stood around a glowing global map. Red dots covered space. Each one represented an enemy fleet. Each one represented destruction. One officer spoke softly. They are stronger than expected. Another replied, they are not just invading systems, they are erasing them. A heavy silence followed. Then a senior human commander spoke, a calm man with tired eyes. Then we stopped them from moving forward. No fear, no hesitation, just decision. A young analyst stepped forward. Sir, our fleet is still small compared to them. The commander nodded slowly. Yes. A pause. Then he added, but small does not mean weak. He turned toward the main hologram. Show Earth Defense Fleet. The display changed. Dozens of ships appeared. Not massive warships. Not alien-like superweapons, but human-built vessels. Fast, modular, sharp in design, built for adaptability. One officer whispered, we still haven't tested them in real war conditions. The commander replied, today is a test. Rocket the first movement. In orbit above Earth, something changed. Human ships began to activate, not loudly, not dramatically, but in perfect coordination. Engines ignited silently. Shield systems powered on. Weapon systems synced. One by one, ships left orbit. Not in a rush, not scattered, but organized, like a single thought moving through space. Far away, the Orion Council sensors detected it. An officer shouted, "Human fleet is launching." Another officer zoomed in. "It is small, only a few dozen ships." A laugh came from one corner. "That is it?" That is their response. But Admiral Kareth did not laugh. He leaned closer to the display, because something was wrong. The formation was too perfect. No random movement. No hesitation. Every ship moved like it already knew its place. And more disturbing, they were not heading away from danger. They were moving toward it. Brain the strategy that should not exist. One council strategist stepped forward. "This makes no sense. They are moving directly toward the enemy front line." Another replied, "That is suicide." But Kareth raised a hand. "Show their trajectory prediction." The system calculated. Lines appeared in space. Human ships were not just moving forward. They were splitting, forming multiple interception paths, cutting angles, blocking escape routes. One officer frowned. "They are surrounding the enemy?" Another answered quickly, "That is impossible. They don't even know enemy positions." But then something unexpected happened. A new scan arrived, and the room froze again, because the humans knew not all positions, but enough. Too much for a primitive species. One officer whispered, "How do they have targeting data already?" No one answered. Milky Way first contact with the enemy. In deep space, far beyond Earth's orbit, the first alien fleet entered system range. They were massive, dark armored ships, covered in glowing battle markings. Their reputation was already feared across 12 star systems. They had destroyed civilizations before without effort. They expected the same here. But then, they detected something. Human ships. Small. Waiting. The alien commander laughed. A deep, echoing sound. "Is this a defense of Earth?" Another alien officer replied. "Pathetic." Weapon systems charged. Target locks acquired. And then, they fired. Collision the moment everything changed. Energy beams tore through space. Massive shockwaves spread across the void. Any normal fleet would have been erased instantly. But the human ships did something unexpected. They moved, not away, but through the attack. One ship tilted slightly. Another shifted position by milliseconds. Laser fire passed through empty space. Explosions lit up behind them. But not a single human ship was destroyed. The alien commander froze. "Impossible." He ordered another attack. Stronger, faster, more precise. The space lit up like a star explosion. And again, the humans moved. Not randomly, not luckily, but predictably unpredictable. Like they already knew where every shot would land. Puzzle piece human warfare logic. Inside Earth Command, analysts watched live data. One officer spoke quickly. "They are reading enemy firing patterns." Another replied, "No, they are predicting them." A third added, "That is not normal prediction accuracy." The commander stared at the screen. "This is pattern recognition at combat speed." He paused, then added quietly, "An adaptation on the fly." Back in space, the human fleet began to respond, not with panic, not with retreat, but with structure. One human ship fired a single shot. It did not explode randomly. It hit a key structural point on an alien vessel. The ship stopped moving. Another human ship fired. Another target disabled. No wasted energy. No unnecessary attacks. Only precision. The alien fleet began to lose formation. Confusion spread. How are they targeting weak points so accurately? Are they using advanced AI? No signal interference detected. Panic began to rise. For the first time, the aliens were uncertain, warning the first fear in the galaxy. Admiral Kareth watched everything silently. The human fleet was not winning by strength. They were winning by control. Every action had purpose. Every movement removed advantage from the enemy. One officer whispered, "They are not fighting like soldiers." Another replied, "Then what are they fighting like?" Kareth finally spoke, "Hunters." The room went silent, because that word carried weight. Hunters did not react. Hunters did not defend. Hunters decided outcomes before the prey understood the situation. Shooting star the ship begins. The alien fleet tried to regroup, but it was too late. Human ships had already changed position, cutting escape routes, blocking reinforcements, isolating command ships. One alien officer shouted, "We are being contained." Another screamed, "They are controlling the battlefield." But it was worse than that. The humans were not just controlling it, they were finishing it. Brain Earth Command Final Order. On Earth, the commander gave a final instruction. Calm voice, simple words. Phase 1 complete. A pause. Then, begin removal protocol. No celebration. No emotion. Just execution of strategy. Milky Way the galaxy starts to notice. Back in Orion Council Command, alarms triggered across multiple systems. Enemy fleet integrity dropping. Command ships isolated. Unknown tactical collapse detected. Admiral Kara stepped forward slowly. He stared at Earth on the hologram, and for the first time, he understood something terrifying. This was not Earth's strongest response. This was their first response. And in the darkness of space, the war had only just begun. Space was no longer quiet. It was alive with fire, movement, and confusion. What began as a small human response had now become something the Orion Council could not understand anymore. It was not a battle. It was a system collapse. And it was spreading fast. Milky Way, the first signs of breakdown. Inside the Orion Council command station, alarms kept ringing. Not one, not 10, hundreds. Each one reporting the same thing. Front line lost. Fleet coordination failing. Unknown enemy tactics disrupting formations. Communication interference increasing. Admiral Kara stood in silence. His eyes did not move from the holographic map. Earth was still there. Calm. Quiet. But everything around was burning. One officer shouted, "We are not losing ships fast. We are losing structure." Another added, "They are breaking our command systems." A third officer leaned forward. "It's not brute force, it's control warfare." That word changed the room. Control warfare. It meant the enemy was not just attacking ships. They were attacking decision-making itself. Rocket human fleet advances. Far away. Human ships continued moving. No chaos. No confusion. Only purpose. Each human ship had a role. Some scanned enemy movement patterns. Some blocked escape paths. Some targeted command vessels. And some simply waited, watching, learning, adapting. Inside Earth Command, a young officer spoke. "They are adjusting faster than expected." Another replied, "They are reacting to our predictions." The commander narrowed his eyes. "No." A pause. Then he said, "They are reacting to reactions." Silence filled the room, because that was not supposed to be possible. Cross-Sword's first major collapse. In Deep Space Sector V-19, the alien fleet tried to regroup. They formed a defensive sphere. Strong shields. Overlapping fire zones. Emergency command links activated. It was a formation that had survived hundreds of wars. It had never broken. Until now. Human ships stopped at the edge of range. For a moment, nothing happened. The aliens waited. Then they prepared counterattack protocols. But the humans did not attack immediately. Instead, they analyzed. Seconds passed. Then something strange happened. The human fleet split. Not randomly, but mathematically. Each ship moved into exact positions, like a grid forming in space. One alien officer frowned. "What are they doing?" Another replied, "I don't know, but it looks planned." Then the human attack began. But it was not one attack. It was many, from every direction, at the exact same time. Collision, the impossible strike. Alien shields activated instantly. Energy fields expanded. Weapons fired back. Space lit up like a collapsing star. But the human attack did not stop. It adapted. Each strike adjusted mid-flight. Each movement corrected based on shield response. It was as if the human weapons were thinking. And then, something broke. A single point in the alien formation failed. Just one. A small gap. But the humans saw it instantly. And they entered it like water through a crack. One ship. Then 5. Then 20. Inside the formation. Inside the defense. Inside the heart of the fleet. And then, silence. New Moon, the first command ship, falls. The alien command vessel was massive, heavily armored, protected by layers of defense. It had never been breached before. The alien commander watched nervously, redirect all power to shields. But it was too late. Human ships were already inside the formation, moving fast. Too fast. Precise strikes hit key systems. Not random damage. Targeted collapse. Power systems failed. Communication lines broke. Internal stability dropped. The alien commander shouted, "Who are they targeting first?" A technician replied, "They are not targeting ships." A pause. Then fear entered his voice. "They are targeting us." Brain Earth understand the pattern. Inside Earth Command, the room was calm, but tension was rising. A senior analyst spoke. "Enemy coordination is weakening rapidly." Another added, "Their command hierarchy is collapsing." The commander nodded. "Good." A pause. Then he said, "Move to phase 2. No celebration. No emotion. Only progression." A young officer asked, "Sir, should we slow down?" The commander looked at him. "Why?" The officer hesitated. "There's still thousands of ships out there." The commander interrupted. "And how many will remain if we slow down?" Silence. No one answered. Warning the galaxy starts to fear. Back at Orion Council Command, Admiral Kareth finally moved. He zoomed out the hologram. What he saw was no longer a normal war map. It was collapse patterns. Entire regions going dark. Fleet structures breaking apart. Command chains disappearing. One officer whispered, "This is not war." Another replied, "This is removal." Kareth spoke slowly. "No." A pause. Then he said, "This is efficiency." That word was worse. Because efficiency meant intention. Not chaos. Not emotion. Just controlled destruction. Milky Way human war logic revealed. A council strategist spoke urgently. "They are not fighting like any known species." Another replied, "Then how are they fighting?" The strategist hesitated, then answered, "They are removing resistance faster than it can adapt." A pause, then added, "They are not reacting to us anymore." A cold silence spread. "They are predicting us before we act." Skull's second major breakthrough. Human ships reached the second alien fleet cluster. This one was larger, stronger, better organized. The aliens adjusted quickly. They learned from the first battle. They prepared faster. They spread formations wider. They tried new tactics. But the humans had already changed. Again, human ships now moved differently. No longer reacting. Now anticipating. Each alien movement triggered human repositioning before the movement even completed. One alien officer shouted, "They're inside our decision loop." Another screamed, "That is not possible." But it was happening. Every choice the aliens tried to make was already answered before it was finished. Shooting star the war that lasted hours. Across the galaxy, fleets began falling, not in explosions of glory, but in silent failure. Systems shutting down. Command ships isolated. Coordination collapsing. Entire battle zones disappearing from sensors. One by one. Sector after sector. The war was not dragging on. It was ending quickly. Too quickly. And no one understood how. Ice Cube Admiral Kareth's realization. Kareth stood alone for a moment. The command room behind him was still active, but he felt something else. Something heavier. He whispered, "They are not learning to fight." A pause. Then he finished. "They already know how to end it." One officer asked softly, "Sir, what does that mean?" Kareth did not answer immediately. Then he said, "It means this war was decided before we even entered it." Milky Way Earth moves to final phase. On Earth, the commander watched the final reports. Enemy resistance dropping. Systems collapsing. Fleet fragmentation complete. He spoke calmly. "Proceed to final phase." No one responded with excitement, because to them, this was not victory. It was completion. High voltage, the galaxy begins to go silent. In deep space, alien fleets stopped responding, not because they were destroyed instantly, but because they were no longer able to respond at all. Communication systems failed. Command links disappeared. Even distress signals became noise. One alien survivor transmission was recorded. "We cannot understand them." Then silence. New Moon End Part 3. The war that should have lasted centuries ended in hours, not because of power, but because of precision. And somewhere in the galaxy, something ancient fear began to spread, because humanity had finally shown its full capability. And it was only the beginning. Space was silent again, but this silence was not peace. It was the kind of silence that comes after something cannot be undone. Across the Orion Council, every system was watching the same thing. The human fleet had stopped moving. The alien fleets were gone, not all destroyed in fire, not all erased in explosions. Many were simply gone from the fight, disconnected, broken, scattered, unable to continue. And Earth remained still, Like nothing had happened. Globe showing Europe, Africa, Earth. The calm after war. On the blue planet, there was no celebration, no victory speech, no loud announcements, only quiet rooms filled with tired humans staring at screens. The war reports were still coming in, one by one, system by system. A young officer looked at the data and whispered, "It's over." Another replied softly, "Yes, it ended faster than expected." A pause followed. Then someone asked, "Did we lose anyone?" Silence. Then the answer came, "Minimal losses. No emotion, just fact." But in that moment, even that simple answer felt heavy, because minimal still meant lives, still meant cost, still meant reality. Milky Way Orion Council. Fear without enemy. In the Orion Council command station, the atmosphere had changed completely. No shouting, no strategy discussions, no battle orders, only silence. Admiral Kara stood in front of the hologram. It showed empty space where fleets once existed. He zoomed in slowly. System after system was marked as inactive. One officer spoke carefully. "We are not receiving enemy signals anymore." Another added, "Not even distress signals." A third officer whispered, "It's like they were never here." But Kareth knew that was not true. They were here. They just could not continue. He turned slowly toward his staff. His voice was low. "What did we just witness?" No one answered, because there was no simple answer. One strategist finally spoke. "They ended the war." A pause. Then he added, "In hours." Another officer shook his head. "No, that is not what happened." Everyone looked at him. He continued, "They didn't end the war." A deep breath. "They ended the ability of the enemy to continue war." The room went cold, because that was different. Very different. Brain, the human pattern revealed. Back on Earth, analysts reviewed the full battle data. A senior scientist pointed at the screen. "They never overcommit." Another replied, "They never wasted movement." A third added, "They never reacted emotionally." The commander listened quietly. Then he said, "They removed uncertainty." The room turned toward him. He continued, "Every action they took reduced future risk." A pause. Then the final conclusion. "They didn't fight the war we saw. They fought the war we didn't see yet." Silence filled the room, because that kind of thinking was not normal warfare. It was something deeper, something evolved. Shooting star first contact after the war. A transmission arrived at Orion Council Command. Origin, Earth. Everyone froze. Admiral Kareth opened it personally. A human voice appeared. "Calm. Neutral. This is Earth Command. We confirm conflict resolution is complete." A pause. Then the message continued. "There will be no further engagement unless necessary." Another pause. Then the final line. "The war is over. Transmission ended." One officer whispered, "They speak like it was a procedure." Another replied, "Because to them it was." But Kareth did not respond. He was staring at something else. Not the message, but the tone. No pride, no aggression, no fear, only completion. Like closing a file. Milky Way, the galaxy's new realization. In the following hours, surviving alien factions began sending scattered messages. Some were confused. Some were terrified. Some were simply silent. One transmission was decoded. "We do not understand Earth forces. They do not fight like warriors. They fight like inevitability." That word spread quickly. Inevitability. Not strength, not strategy, not technology, but something that could not be avoided once it started. Warning: the council debate. The Orion Council gathered in emergency session. Every major species representative attended. The debate was simple. What is Earth? Some said, they are a military superpower. Others argued, no, they're still young. A few whispered, they are something else. Finally, Admiral Kara stood. He spoke slowly. We underestimated them. A pause. Then, that is not the danger. Everyone looked at him. He continued, the danger is that we still don't understand what they're capable of. A senator asked, should we prepare for another conflict? Kareth answered without hesitation. No. A pause. Then he added, we should prepare for understanding them, before we ever misunderstand them again. Silence. No one argued. Globe showing Europe, Africa, humanity's own question. On Earth, the military command room was quiet again. But this time, the silence was different. It was not tension. It was reflection. A young officer asked, did we go too far? No one answered immediately. The commander finally spoke. We ended a war that would have destroyed millions more. A pause. Then he added softly, if we had hesitated, it would still be going. The officer nodded slowly. But another question remained. What happens next? The commander looked at the screen, showing distant space. He said only one thing. We wait. Milky Way, the galaxy, watches Earth. Far across space, civilizations began changing their behavior. Not attacking, not provoking, not even speaking loudly. Because now, they understood something. Earth was not just another species. Earth was a threshold. Cross it incorrectly, and everything ends. One alien diplomat said, quietly, we thought they were part of the galaxy. A pause. Then he added, but they are the reason the galaxy still has order. Ice Cube Admiral Karatha's final log. In a private recording, Kara spoke alone. His voice was no longer commanding. It was reflective. We thought war defined strength. A pause. We were wrong. Another pause. Humanity does not define strength through war. He leaned closer. They define war through outcome. He ended the log. And for the first time since the conflict began, he felt relief, mixed with fear, because understanding humanity was not comforting. It was humbling. Shooting star final moment. The human signal. Before closing the communication channels, Earth sent one final short message. No military code. No warning. Just words. This was not personal. That was all. No explanation. No justification. Just closure. And somehow, that made it worse for those who heard it, because it meant humanity did not hate, did not enjoy, did not even struggle. They simply responded. New moon, end of story. The war was over, not because one side was stronger, but because one side understood the shape of conflict better than the other ever could. And in the silence of space, the galaxy learned a new truth. Some species fight wars. Some survive wars. And humans end them.